What is up, everybody? RLTK Podcast. Jordan here, kicking it with my boy Chris. Chris, what is going on?
What's up, big bro?
You chilling?
Yeah, man. I'm just, trying to decide what I'm gonna eat for lunch. Really?
That's really what you think about right now?
Yeah. I haven't had fried chicken in a minute, and I've been eating a lot of grilled chicken lately, and now I want some fried. So I'm thinking about Popeyes, Cane's. I'm thinking about Chick-fil-A.
I mean, you could just get all of
You know
them.
what I'm talking about? I mean, I could. I could for real.
Mm-hmm.
Like for real. But I also like fried chicken. You ever had fried chicken?
Absolutely. Like from the deli?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh man, it's
No,
so good.
that grilled chicken though that you put me on game.
From Safeway?
No, that's Safeway. That's Safeway.
Safeway.
Bro, they got that hot and sweet.
Yes.
Oh,
Bro, I'm so glad we can eat meat. I really hope to God that we can eat meat in heaven. Look, bro, I heard a comedian say the other night. He said we must have ate every animal and then realized the ones we couldn't eat, so we just kept them as pets.
I'm dead.
And I'm so glad that we can eat chicken. And
depends where you live, my boy.
Now that's
True.
a fact.
True.
That's a fact.
Because you eat what you eating.
That's true.
But anyways,
man,
all
I'm
right.
just glad we can eat fried chicken.
Obviously, we have a guest. He's sitting in the middle of us. His name's Jeff. Jeff, what is going on?
Hey, what's good, everybody?
Jeff, I need you to rank, since Chris is on the subject, Chick-fil-A, Cane's,
Come on.
Popeyes.
Come on, talk.
1, 2, 3.
Talk.
Putting you on the spot, bro.
Talk about it.
Are we talking like this, like just a sandwich?
The chicken.
Bro, now you asking.
No. We're
Because
talking
I feel
about.
like there's categories. for
Oh
this.
yes, there is.
Okay,
First,
let's rank the chicken by itself,
and there's like
and then let's rank the
quality
chicken.
of the chicken.
and
the
then there's
sandwich.
the customer experience. Is that part of this?
No,
I
I want
to a
the chicken
degree
is-
because
the chicken is-
Popeyes is a little ghetto. But I think,
bro. It's chicken itself and then chicken sandwich.
No, he said service.
Let's
Service.
scratch the service. The chicken
Yeah,
itself
experience.
and then the chicken sandwich. So let's start with the chicken itself. What are you ranking?
Chicken itself, I'm gonna have to go with Chick-fil-A.
Oh. See, this is difficult. This is difficult.
I didn't have anything appropriate to say.
We have to go into the details of this.
Nothing.
Because we have to also recognize that the bone of the chicken gives flavor.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? And
But
so
I think that's when you get into like the different types of chicken. So you have the chicken sandwich, and then you have the tenders and the nuggets. So I feel like though overall,
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to go with Chick-fil-A because even if you go with like their grilled chicken,
That grilled chicken is
it's
pretty
really
good. I gotta go Popeyes first though, man.
okay.
That Popeye, man,
I mean,
it hit
And
different.
to be
man.
fair, I don't think you can go wrong.
Popeyes
With
about
all three.
broke the universe with that chicken sandwich.
Yeah, it's true. I ain't
That
never
literally
seen
broke
Popeyes
the
line
world.
that long.
I remember that. And it did that happen during COVID too?
I think so.
It did, didn't it?
It
So
It gave us hope. It gave us hope.
gave us
for-
hope. It made us go outside.
Yes.
What?
We was willing to risk our lives for a chicken sandwich.
I mean,
We're Lysoling the groceries and things, but we'll go outside in public
facts.
with other people for a chicken sandwich.
Hey, facts with no mask.
wilding for those chicken sandwiches too.
Yeah,
Can I be honest though? Like Cane's is okay,
yeah.
but I'm not putting Cane's up there with Chick-fil-A and Popeyes.
I'm really
That's
not.
fair. That's fair.
I mean,
really
that
not.
sauce
That-
is elite though, bro.
Nah, we talking
Bro,
about chicken,
we can
man.
make
Not
the
the
sauce
sauce.
You're right.
True.
Yeah.
But
Nah,
I mean, that
man.
sauce is
Nah,
elite, my
nah,
boy.
we ain't talking about sauce. We talking
That
about
sauce is elite.
Chick-fil-A sauce is way better than Cane's sauce. Come on.
bro. I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like the elements are all
Yes, sir.
there though.
Yes,
No,
sir.
It's so similar.
Yes, sir. This is how I look. Let me tell you this, man. Cane's need that sauce. I don't think Chick-fil-A need their sauce for their chicken.
That's fair. That is a
That's
fair critique.
You know what I'm talking about? I don't think,
that's
I
fair.
can eat Chick-fil-A chicken without the sauce.
If they give you the box of nuggets
yeah,
and you forget to order the Chick-fil-A sauce, you're riding
I'm good
home.
with
I'm
that.
You're
still
eating.
good. I'm
That
still
nuggets
good.
and a lemonade, bro.
Yeah. But
Okay.
Cane's need that sauce though.
All right, so I want to know from the listeners. You guys can put it in the chat, comments, whatever. How you listing? Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, Cane's.
Mm.
I want to know. I'm interested.
This is amazing podcast right here.
My
The depth.
The depths of chicken.
I think the sandwich though would have to. I think easily Popeyes will
Oh,
That chicken
facts.
sandwich is crazy.
Yeah, facts, man.
Put some barbecue sauce on it and some cheese. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
Yeah, Popeye's chicken.
Ooh.
It broke the world.
It did.
Yeah, it
Broke
did.
the world. Mm.
Well,
What a gift.
Man. Let's just go right now. 5 each.
We'll be back.
5 chicken sandwiches each. Eat them while we're podcasting.
While we're podcasting.
I'm dead.
I'm down. Right now, I'm serious. Let's pause.
I know you're serious.
Oh, okay.
I know.
I'm for real.
So we'll be back.
Seriously.
Bro, seriously. He
On
would,
me.
he would
On me.
totally stop the podcast right now.
On me right now. Let's go.
He would. We're not doing it, though.
All right.
Jeff.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Glad you're here with us.
Glad
Thanks
to
for
be
coming in and talking with us about chicken and all things youth ministry in the urban context. So yeah, those things probably could go together, I guess.
Hey, chicken is a ministry, bro.
And urban ministry.
Chicken
I feel like
is a ministry.
yeah, bro. But anyways,
Big fact.
obviously we know who you are. Our listeners, our viewers don't. So tell us who you are, man. What do you do? Where you from?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Currently, I work for Aim Right Ministries. We're a nonprofit downtown Phoenix and work with youth in the Garfield neighborhood. Also get to lead the Phoenix Fuel Network, which is a group of urban youth leaders here in Phoenix. Get together to collaborate on how we can meet different pain points and needs of the youth that we serve, doing that together. I'm also a student, finishing up my bachelor's degree, getting a degree in youth ministry. Got about a year left on that. And then most importantly, I'm a father and husband. My wife and I have been married for 15 years now.
Let's go.
And I've got 3 kids. 10.
Good job, wife, putting up with Jeff.
Absolutely.
15 years.
I mean, that's the credit goes to her.
You
really.
You got 10 kids?
No, I was going to say that. The Lord has been good. We have 3 kids.
Oh,
Ages 10, 8,
okay.
and
All right.
6.
Whoa,
Yeah.
10.
You almost got him in trouble. His wife like, where those other 7
I'm
from?
like,
That we
yo,
know of.
if you have
3.
10 kids, I don't even know how you're here right now.
Facts.
You shouldn't even be podcasting.
Right.
You should be working right now. You got 8 jobs.
8 jobs.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is funny, bro.
I was born in Phoenix, but I grew up in Indiana,
Okay.
outside of South Bend, which is a couple hours east of Chicago. And then got married and moved to Phoenix.
What's South Bend like?
It's a smaller city. That's where Pete Buttigieg is from. I don't know if you know.
Okay, yeah.
So it was like kind of an industrial town that kind of been changing over the last few years, but close to the lake, close to Michigan, close to Chicago.
Did you like do ministry stuff over there?
Yeah, a bit. I was always been involved in youth ministry, kind of like youth adjacent. So, or like ministry adjacent, I guess.
I got
for
you.
a long time. So I worked as a nurse up until a couple years ago.
Bet.
But also had a second job working as a percussion instructor, working with drum lines, instructing, writing music, arranging, that kind of thing. And so that was like my kind of the ministry or whatever was working with kids in an urban setting through music, through percussion.
That's dope. That's cool. So what brought you to Phoenix to lead Aim Right, bro? I mean, it's a far cry from Indiana.
It is. Well, back when Aim Right was founded in the early 90s, my grandparents were actually pastoring a church that Aim Right was birthed out of. So it's kind of always been in the family. And the founder and director of Aim Right's been somebody that we've been connected with for a really long time. The previous director before me, Caleb Reed and his wife Stephanie. Shout out Caleb. Dear friends of ours, and somebody taught me a lot about urban youth work. So real strong connection. Served on the board for Aim Right, and then when there was an opening, felt like God was calling us into that.
That's dope. All right, let me ask the questions that people are probably uncomfortable to ask, but I'm asking them anyways.
Do it.
What's it like being a white dude?
Yes.
Doing urban ministry in the city of Phoenix?
In the city of Phoenix. I think, well, it comes with, I think it comes with a certain amount of humility or to do it well. First, just recognizing the reality of the space I'm in. I think what's helped me along the way is doing a lot of listening a lot of listening, and then just discernment on when it's appropriate for me to lead out of my gifting, because I do have leadership ability and skills, and I believe that God's gifted me with that.
Yeah.
But there's going to be certain places where that's appropriate and where that's not. And so I think just kind of leaning into that discernment, and then also just staying true to myself. Like, I didn't grow up in an urban setting. I didn't grow up in the hood where a lot of the kids that we work with are coming from.
Yeah.
So not like acting like I'm from there. I'm still influenced by it, and I still love urban culture, and but to just be true to myself, and then also, receive the gift that is other cultures and other ethnicities and urban culture, receiving that as a gift
That's dope.
to learn from. So I think that's what it's like. Yeah.
What is it like because I'm curious about this too. What are the misunderstandings? Because I think it's often, I think it's common for us to ask the question, okay, you're a white dude in the urban core. What are you doing there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, sometimes we ask that adversarially, like, why are you here, bro? But I'm curious too, like on the flip side, like as a person coming in that like really cares about this context and really cares about doing ministry in that space, like, what are some of the misunderstandings or perceptions that are put on you that aren't necessarily true?
I think that's a great question. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that much. I think my experience has been maybe that I'm a really like super uber spiritual person that has like church figured out, and that's kind of like what makes me tick. Where that's yes, I'm local church is really important and spirituality is really important, but I'm into music and I'm into art, and a lot of that is find that in urban culture.
Yeah.
And so like when that's something that comes out as a passion, people might be surprised or like,
Gotcha.
oh, we thought you'd be into
You like that?
Right. Yeah.
You like Drake? Drake? That's funny. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of like that perception of, because maybe what we've seen other people, non-urban white people coming into an urban space, we kind of have a track record of coming in and having more of like a colonizing effect, or savior complex. Like, hey, we're here.
Complex.
Yeah. It's kind of like the ones that go to Africa. I think they're doing good.
Right.
Yeah. I do have when I think about urban, I think about young men a lot when it comes to that context. And because I used to do this thing called Man Up with Juan. Shout out to Juan.
Yeah, we'll have him on the pod again soon.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
I used to do that with him, and we used to get young men together and just chop with them about life. What is that like with you, dealing with young boys that's coming in your ministry, and you want to pour in them and help them become the men that God made them to be? Because I find that to be difficult, especially when it comes to the idea of emotion. Right.
Sure.
Like me and Jordan talked about that recently. It's just like as a man, dealing with your emotions with God and things of that nature. So like, what are some things that you find the struggle with dealing with young boys?
Yeah, I think I'm finding that. Let me back up. So I think one of the reasons why I'm drawn to urban youth work and working with these kids is because I had a really strong like support system and infrastructure growing up as a kid. Great parents, had great mentors, had teachers that invested in me. So I had that, and had the freedom to express myself and talk to people. And then when I didn't want to go to my dad or my parents because of like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I had other men in my life that I could go talk to. And so part of that is like, I want to be part of that scaffolding for other young men and other young people. And so when they come into our space and we're working with them, we're building a relationship with them. I think one of the things that I see is they don't even know how to have a conversation about it. So helping them find the language to express like what they're actually feeling, whether that's through poetry or
interesting,
and or just in like a one-on-one conversation of doing a lot of active listening and just trying to ask the right questions of them, and just making it a consistent, safe space where they know like you're for real. Because when you're in that space, it doesn't matter if I'm from Indiana or wherever. Like if they know that they can trust you with that, I think that's been like the catalyst for those to discovering like their emotions, like how they relate to God, how God relates to them, how they relate to other people.
Yeah.
I think does that make sense to
It
answer the
does. It
question?
does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like that because I come from the urban youth, but a lot of my mentors didn't come from where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They was like generals or a Navy SEAL or
Yeah.
like just a genuine husband that loves his wife and children, leading his family, and I see that his family respects him and stuff like it's like to a degree it doesn't matter where you come from, because I think manhood is just a connection of nature, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter about the environment, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like you may have not come from that context, but you are a man and they can relate to you still. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
and that's why I asked that question, because I think I find that it's a little bit difficult,
Yeah.
trying to reach young boys in ministry sometimes. And so I want to ask, like, what was that actually like?
Yeah. And kids can tell as like if you're being fake at all, like they can tell instantly,
Yeah,
so if you're not being authentic and
Yeah.
true to who you are and trying to, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think when I think about one of the things I love about the urban context, honestly, like just living in the city or living in those spaces is like people just accept you as is. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're genuine and authentic about who you are, even if you're not from the space, and you like genuinely build relationships with people, like people in those spaces are just generally pretty accepting. I mean, obviously there's like, the gang spaces and all those different types of things, which can be a little bit more difficult to navigate.
yeah.
But generally speaking, like people in those spaces who are kind of just living in those environments, that's where they live, that's where they're from, that's what they know, are like generally quite accepting of you when you come in there genuinely wanting to build a relationship. And so I think that's really cool about that space. And I think it's like a misnomer. Like people assume like you're going to go to that context and people are going to be trying to beef with you. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case. There might be some people there who are trying to beef with you because they're trying to protect the space, or they just think that you're fake and don't trust you.
Yeah.
But if that's not what's happening, then I think you'll be surprised at the kind of relationships you can have with people in that context. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
That's really true. And one of the things that is like one of the most important things that we as humans have is our experience. And when somebody comes in and doesn't, if I'm in an urban context and I see somebody coming in trying to like change things or improve things or whatever, almost that missionary mindset, unless that person is going to listen to my experience, my lived experience, I think that's the key. If you don't do that, then you're not going to be successful. And that's where that trust is built, I think. So,
and I think once again, it's like even people don't understand the complexities of the issues in those spaces.
Yeah.
And then it's like you just think you're going to come in and solve them by bringing your methods from another context. And that's not necessarily the case. And then it's like your assumption is like you've assumed that these specific things need to change. How do you know you're even right?
Yeah.
And once again, I think listening to the community, you can find out what the actual issues are and then partner with the community to address those issues. I mean, your assumption is that the community doesn't want to address those issues themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. They're well aware of them. They live there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's interesting. I think when you go in and you partner with people, man, incredible things happen. I think the other thing I think of too is like people have this assumption that they're going into those spaces and there's nothing for them to learn.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like Proverbs, right? When the rich and poor come together, the Lord gives them both sight.
Yeah.
And so like we have as much to learn from them as they have from us. Like, yes, God may be using us to proclaim the gospel in that context or whatever, but there was also like God isn't done with us in terms of discipleship. He isn't done with us in terms of spiritual formation. And so there's things that he will use, like kids who are wilding or doing all types of stuff to like teach us about himself or ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And so I think oftentimes when we go in with that Messiah complex, we miss all of what God has planned. And I think it goes back to what Tommy always says, which is dope. Shout out to Tommy. Like the work is always about being with God.
Yes.
And so ultimately God calls us into the work because that is the best way for us to be with him based on how we're designed. You know what I'm saying? And so my call to ministry isn't about me doing all this work for God so much as it is about with me being with God as I do the work with him.
Absolutely. Yeah. The question isn't what work should I be doing, or what work can I start, but rather like what work is God already doing? What is God already up to that I can join in on while I'm here for this season with these people? Yeah.
I think that's it's tough. It really is, because the work that it's, how do I say it? It's a life of reconciling, right?
Yeah.
It's a life of rebuilding the old bridge, right? It's the connection back to the design of the divine, right? It's backwards work, and it takes a certain type of character to do things like that. It takes a certain level of a moral stance and ethical rightness to do things like that. And it calls a lot out of you.
It does. Yeah.
Like, it's you really can't do as much as you think you do if you can't do as much in yourself as you should, right? Because it's really not on them, it's on us, right? And I've noticed that even in my own life, right? It's yeah, you want to do these things, but what's going on here? Because how can you actually be effective, right? And so there's a difference between having a heart from something than having the character for something, right?
That's good,
That's
bro.
good.
And so I think it's like I like how you said that, you're helping them have a particular language, right? Because in this area of the urban youth, they have a lot to say, but they don't know how to say it,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, I think it was Carnell West that said, he talked about how you could put the black boy in the school, he may not do good, but if you put him in the booth, he's a genius.
Absolutely.
So I think it's how can we put them in a position to give them that language to express how they feel, and then like there's that bridge that we can connect and share that truth of the reality of how things are. And so I think, well, it takes work. It really starts with
Yes,
self,
it
man.
does. Oh
It
my goodness.
does. You know what I'm
It's a
saying? And so,
lot.
like, what are some things that you're even learning about yourself when you hopping in this community and trying to make a change?
One of the things that I learned very quickly, just like on a personal level, is to work in ministry, to work in youth ministry, to work in urban youth ministry. There is a certain weight that you bear up under. And if you're not right, if you don't have, or at least if you're not like on a trajectory, because it's a journey, we're never going to get to that destination in this life. But there's certain values and concepts and ideas that if you don't have those in place, you're going to burn out, you're going to fall, all of that. And so I had to quickly learn how to prioritize things in my life. So the personal development on my end of constantly learning and reading and listening. And then of course up at the top, time spent with God, my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, and then our kids, our home, having those things in place. So going through that process of like prioritizing that and figuring out like, okay, what's the daily routine? What's the time management, all those little things, so that when it comes time for those conversations with kids, when it comes time to like cast vision and be strategic, things that require a lot of capacity and brain power. Like if I'm not healthy in every sense holistically, then I'm going to be giving 40%, 20%,
Facts.
when I want to be giving 90, 100%. And so I think that's been just recognizing that. It's amazing, Chris, like how many leaders don't even recognize that you got to do that personal work. And it's constantly ongoing. But I think I would be in a place now 2 years in that if I hadn't continually set those things up and been reminded of them and try to put myself around other people that do that, I'd be about done.
Do you think youth pastors struggle with surrounding themselves with people that pour into them? Do you think that's a struggle with youth pastors trying to find to be poured into?
I think so. I think we're getting better at it, honestly. I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's still a need. I think youth pastors specifically in a church context.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Like nonprofits is kind of a different world. But youth leaders in a church context often kind of have this weird relationship with a senior pastor, maybe that where they feel that pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Pressure to perform, all of that.
Yeah. Now I'm not in that space, so this is just like what I'm hearing from people and like kind of express needs and things. And it's not always unhealthy, but it's just
it's there.
It's a reality, right? And so I think then there's this pressure to perform or have all the things, which is good. I mean, it helps drive your, keeps you motivated and all that, be excellent at what you do. But I think people get caught up in that, especially in the church space, and maybe aren't open to outside voices or surrounding themselves with people that aren't in their specific, I mean, sometimes church itself, like I'm talking the building or the denomination or, and so much less other people that are doing urban youth work outside of the church, in the parachurch space. I think it's easy to silo up, even in the work and especially in getting poured into. And
that's good.
Because as we're going through so much as youth leaders, that to be stretched and to be challenged on things, it's difficult. That takes a lot of capacity. So I think we find ourselves, if we are getting poured into, oftentimes it's an echo chamber where like we're just getting that feedback loop of things we want to hear.
Interesting.
Yeah, there has to be that real intentionality about going outside of that space to learn, grow, be challenged.
Which is difficult.
Yeah, it's tough.
Really hard.
And you got to have the time. And I bet a lot of cats don't feel like they have the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So tell us a little bit more about what it's like to do youth ministry, specifically in Phoenix. Like what's going on for you as you're on the ground in Garfield doing the work?
Yeah. Phoenix is interesting. I'll talk about like our specific context. But Phoenix is interesting because I feel like youth ministry, just like the city, is broken up into pockets.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's it's not just like, okay, this part of town is this way and this part of town is the other way. It's like, no, there's pockets all over. And I think the ministry reflects that as well. In Garfield, we're serving low income kids. It's an under-resourced neighborhood. And at the same time, they're feeling that squeeze of gentrification. There's we're at 13th Street and Roosevelt. So like the Roosevelt Arts District is not what it used to be back in the day. It's built up. It's crazy, and so kind of feeling that squeeze a little bit. Rising housing prices. Our neighborhood has a lot of generational families there. So the gentrification process is happening. I feel like it's slowed down a little bit. We work with a couple Title I schools in the neighborhood. So a lot of the kids we're working with coming from families that, multi-generational homes, parents are working several jobs to make ends meet. Right. And so what our ministry looks like is just trying to be that, I'm going to be really general, but to be a safe space with caring adults. And that's kind of what the everything we do is based around that trust-based relationship thing. Our mission is to help youth find direction in life. And we believe that it's through the gospel of Jesus that we do that. But we want to be creative in how we do that, especially in an urban space. And I think we might get into this later, but there's definitely been a shift since lockdown with everything. And so we're still learning how to meet kids where they're at really effectively. But it's all based on that trust-based relationship. And I think that's where we've seen the most progress, or we've seen that transformational journey beginning, is in that like small group settings, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about that shift, bro. I'm interested in your thoughts on that. I mean, when we're in the high schools doing stuff, it seems like from my perspective, kids are more cliquey than they were before. They're more anxious than they were before. They're less open than they were before. They're more pessimistic and skeptical than they were before. And they were pretty pessimistic and skeptical before. And so, like those are some of like the initial thoughts that I have. And not that there's not cool things about those kids, because there's tons of cool things. They're like, when you get through some of the barriers, they're super open, super willing to talk and process and relate, and even be encouraging to one another or to you. So cool things happening in those spaces. But Yeah, what are you seeing?
It was really interesting when I started in as the director at Aim Right was March of 2022, I think it was.
Okay.
So like we're moving out of pandemic at that point. But what I noticed is I feel like it can be described just in like the posture of the kids. Shoulders hunched forwards, heads down, hoodie up, mask still on. It was just like, it's like a perfect picture of what's happening inside. So I think that's like, if especially middle schoolers, just, I don't think they have a place to be. So I think that's one of the shifts too of like, if middle schoolers were falling through the cracks before pandemic, I think they're falling through the cracks even more now. But just like in general shifts, there's the change in the way that we communicate with each other and interact with each other digitally, has just made for a lot. I mean, just like cruel interactions. Like,
yeah, bro.
It's insane the things that kids are saying to each other. It's like it's gone from the digital space into real life now. And so I think that's one of the shifts too, is just the way kids talk to each other. I think adults too. I mean, social media, we talk about that.
Yeah, the natural polarization of social media. Yeah.
But I think on a real level, the reality of kids and how they communicate with each other, I think there's been a huge shift in that. And I don't, I think there's also been a shift in just how we do ministry. That's probably across the board.
Yeah.
And when you talk to other youth leaders, whether they're parachurch or church organizations, they're having to rethink how you do Sundays, how you do all of that. And I think it's exciting to me to hear people talk about this, and where there's like movement and people are casting a lot of vision, being innovative, is where they're asking the questions like, do we do Sunday? Do we do this? How do we completely change the paradigm of this? Because we're operating out of a new reality that we're still discovering what that is, I think.
Yeah. I'm curious what you meant by middle schoolers falling through the cracks.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I think, little kids are fun to work with if you like little kids, right?
Right. Yeah, right. There we go.
Facts.
There we go.
They still think, you're their hero.
Yeah.
You throw some crafts down, some music, like they're in. They're all in. They're happy to be there. If you're excited, they're excited.
Yeah.
So you can get volunteers for that. You can get funding for that. High school, there's a level of maturity there where you can have conversations. They figured some things out. Developmentally, they're in a place where they're thinking through their future. They're learning. They're developing that worldview, that kind of thing. It's easier for adults to easily have conversations with them.
Makes sense.
Middle school, bro, they're in this like crazy limbo land developmentally where they don't know what's going on with their bodies. Their frontal lobe is just, it seems like it's non-existent, but it's still developing. And so the things that they say, the way they act, it's hard to have one-on-one conversations with them. You're better off in some small groups maybe, but even then it depends. And so it's easier, I think, for youth pastors or youth workers to hone in on like, hey, we're gonna really develop our children's ministry.
Interesting.
And we're really gonna develop our youth ministry, because it's harder to recruit volunteers for middle school because they're just tougher to work with. It's not as easy. It's not as plug and play.
Yeah.
I'm finding that they're becoming like the people that I want to work with. They're becoming my favorite age group. But I think, youth ministry is already down here on the totem pole a lot of times for support and resources and all that. And you just don't hear a lot about middle school. You just don't.
It's true.
You hear, if you look at the curriculum, if you look at all that, it's either like, your vacation Bible school stuff for the young kids or
high school stuff,
or it's high school. And there's not this middle school, I feel like there's a lack of resources, lack of volunteers, a lack of passion for it. Like I don't hear a lot of people saying, man, I am so stoked to be part of this middle school ministry.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to youth leaders, especially in the church space, they'll say, yeah, I'm pastoring, or I'm the youth the junior high pastor or the middle school pastor, and I'm excited to get up to that youth group.
Yeah.
And then at the youth group, they're like, I'm excited to, like, my goal is to become like family pastor or executive pastor or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this like upward trajectory through the hierarchy of ministry,
Yeah.
and middle school is down here.
And you think
In my
it's
opinion.
like, you think it's because like they just don't know how to reach them?
Yeah,
They don't have,
it's
like, the
just
patience. Yeah.
I
don't know what to do with it.
I don't think it's like a super nuanced, complex thing. I think it's just the reality that it's tough, you know,
Yeah.
and parents don't
A
know
lot
how-
of effort, a lot of
It
energy.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And this, like, middle school right now, they're the ones that finished up elementary through COVID, you know, so they're coming out of that. Their reality is different than what high schoolers are going through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, bro. I don't even think we fully understand what the pandemic did to us. I mean, I don't think we understand as adults how it changed us, and
Yeah.
we have no idea what it's done to these kids, bro.
But they're still there. Like, and I think that's what you're saying about, like, we don't know what COVID did. We don't know what being on lockdown did. That reality, like, you hold that, and then you also hold in the other hand the fact that, like, ministry still needs to happen.
Yep.
And so we're just navigating through that. And so I think that does, you know, to go back to that original question about middle school, is I think we're still learning. How do you, where we're at right now with the resources we have, with the people we have, how do you minister to them? How do you get them and keep them engaged and like, show them that they're empowered? Yeah.
So what are things that you do your best to teach the kids that you have?
That's a great question, because we try to be really intentional about it.
Yeah.
I think one of the values, or one of the things that we really try to teach the kids, is that they matter and that we're glad they're there. I know it sounds super basic,
Yeah.
and it's not this, like,
It's essential.
it is.
It's very essential.
And because they don't hear that, you know, like, we want you here. And then just like what I alluded to before with this communication piece, is like, how do you interact with other human beings is something, because if you can't have a conversation with somebody, you're not going to learn. If you're not learning, you're not moving forward.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
Those, like, on a
That's very
basic
good.
level. And then just like with anybody else, we want to really help them discover who they are in Christ. So if we can get them with a basic understanding, or at least like an inkling of knowledge of who they are in Christ, their identity in Christ, then we can build on that.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I think that is the foundation of existence, is form, identity.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you don't know who you are, there's no meaning to be found, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, and I love how Christ provides that for you.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we all grew up in our own ways and own sections. We have our stories, you know, the troubles we went through in life. It shaped us. It made us, you know, we all had like people in our life that taught us certain things, whether it be good or bad. But at the end of the day, it's like it attached itself to some part of our brain that said, this is who you are. And it jacked us up, you know? And so I think a lot of times the struggle with Gen Z is because I think one of the reasons why they struggle with meaning is because they struggle with identity.
Absolutely.
And I think Christ provides that freely. This is what's crazy, bro. There is no cost to identity.
Yeah.
There is no cost, right? I think if you want to talk about, well, let me take that back. Maybe there is cost, because you have to surrender your will and things of that nature. But at the end, it's free.
It's something that's already built in.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's an essence that has already been designed, right? I've knitted you in your mother's womb. I knew you before. Like he already has a concept of who you are before the physical form of who you are. He already has the concept. That is profound within itself. But the concept of you, he knows. And he can give it to you through Christ. You understand? Like that's it's the reason why the scripture says to be made in his image. It has to be that. Like the depths of form is so important. because there's no other point. There's no what's right. And so I think I'm glad you said that. That's just it made me excited because I mean, you know, we all struggle with that.
Yeah. And that's the lens through which then that gives you language and a lens to tackle all the other issues that everybody's dealing with. Anything from just who you are, your identity, to like the practical everyday things like housing insecurity, relationships, all of that.
It's true. Good. It's true.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. What are the challenges you're facing right now? What are some of the challenges that are specific to where you're doing work?
Yeah. I think what I mentioned before is one of the things that shocked me the most was just how students, especially in our context, communicate with each other. That was a big thing that I'm still like, what? Like, how are you saying these things?
Yeah.
And I think that does stem from identity. Like, if you don't see Christ in somebody else, or you don't see their worth, then of course you're not going to communicate in a way that gives value. But I think like some of the challenge, you know what I'm saying?
Good. Yep.
In our context in downtown Phoenix, one of the things for just a lot of reasons is housing insecurity. I don't know if that's what you're getting at with like challenges we're facing, but like for our students, that's something where they're living with that anxiety of, I don't know if we'll be here next month. And if not, we're going to have to move out to the West Valley.
Yeah.
And we're going to be in a new school. We're going to have, and like one student, I remember she came up on a Friday night at one of our programs. She's like, "Hey, Jeff, just want to let you know, we're moving tomorrow." Right. And it was true. She was gone the next day. And so a lot of these relationships, it's like, we know it's a long game and we know that this is going to take time, but also we don't know where the kids are going to be next week.
Yeah.
You know, there's kids that are moving out of state, or they're, you know, unfortunately, some of them are in the system. So like CPS is involved, right? So you don't know where they're going to be. And so that is heartbreaking and difficult. And sometimes it's difficult to prioritize what we're doing with them. So that's why we try to keep basic and all that. Challenges that like our nonprofit is going through is, again, we keep saying post-pandemic, post-lockdown, like giving's down, volunteerism is down.
Yeah.
And we see it kicking back up. We do. But there's not that momentum anymore. And people are a lot more selective with who they're willing to give to. So in our space, finding the people that have the same passion as you do, or trying to find how your passions meet up. That's something that is a challenge. It's also really exciting because it helps. I think I personally am able to help Aim Right define its mission and vision a little more specifically, because we're able to connect with donors and with other supporters and volunteers that really truly have a heart for kids, especially middle school.
That's good, bro. Yeah, man. I feel like that it's the age-old thing, right? The fundraising piece is always a challenge. It always feels like there isn't enough, even though we know there is in Christ, right? And we continue to trust that and do the work. And things always seem to get provided for somehow, some way, which is cool. It's great to think about.
You're right. Because it's hard to live life absence of material, right?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. But it's like Christ says, don't worry about the material.
True.
So like, how can I teach that truth to the poor?
Yeah.
How can you teach that to the poor? That is difficult to teach, right? And I think that's one of the big reasons why the church is there, right? I may not see you tomorrow, but let me do my best to teach you this fundamental truth about Christ as much as I can. You know, even in environments like that a lot of them have to grow up fast. A lot of them are 12 years old and they're full-grown parents.
Absolutely.
Right? And so they have to grow up fast, and so they have to learn fast. And that's why a lot of them are mature at the age of 12 and 13, 14. Like they're parents, and they have to, because they have
live
to
life.
They have to grasp survival early, which sucks. But that's the downfall. But I think we can't let them get lost in that.
Right.
Right. And I think that surviving, which I think everybody understands, surviving is something that we all understand is the basis of life, but that can't be the end.
Right.
I don't think Christ's goal was survival. But for some reason, ours is survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what is that? What is that particular form and mindset that Christ had that we need to adopt? Because he was poor too,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was part of a race that was oppressed, right? And so Jesus was actually a teenager, a poor teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But he also had a mind. He didn't have a mindset of survival. So how can we translate that mindset to the kids where it's like, this is a very tough and sucky situation.
Yeah.
But let me show you how Christ viewed this
Mm-hmm.
in this particular area.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's something that
Yeah.
we have to grasp so we can give them that. So when they do move to that next house or when they go to the next state, or when they're stressing over the bill next week and they get the pink slip, you know?
Yes.
Like they can think about Christ, because what does Colossians say? Put your mind up above where Christ sits. Like he constantly tells us to set your mind on those things. And if your mind is not there, you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
And we all know what happens when you're in survival mode. That's savage mode.
Absolutely.
And so morality's out the window, big boy. And so I think that we have to teach the mind of Christ. We have to grasp that as much as we can, you know, and yeah, there's questions there, but still it's something that we have to grasp, because Christ didn't live in a survival mode. And that's why he wasn't a savage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why he wasn't a savage. You know, he didn't live off that mindset. And so I think it's very important.
Yeah.
But it's tough too. It's tough.
Yeah, I think that's hard because we, like, even as I hear you say that, I hear it and I'm like, yo, I live in a nice house. I got a nice car. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so it's like, I'm going to go tell this kid, hey, don't worry.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I think there's a level of, sometimes it can be a level of guilt for us, or at least I'm experiencing that right now.
Mm.
But I think also when I think about it even more, I'm like, well, what else do I have to give?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, can I solve their problem?
Mm.
Do I have enough money? And once again, I think like if we had generous Christians who were willing to invest in those families, I think some transformative things can happen. And I get that it's more complex than just that, but I think that's part of it, right?
Mm.
But what else do we actually have to offer them other than like, yo, God can walk with you in the midst of all this stuff? And maybe to some extent, if you come from that space, like, yo, I went through the same things that you're going through right now. And this is how I've seen God bring me through. And I believe he can bring you through too. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I don't know what else I even have to offer them other than Christ and his words and his encouragements not to worry and to put their hope and trust in him. It's funny because I'm even studying that passage right now about not worrying. And like Christ's whole point there is like, yo, you guys are worrying about food and you're worrying about clothing and you're worrying about water. And like those were legitimate concerns at that time. Like people were really poor, like way more poor than we are now. Right. And he's like, but you need those things to keep the very thing alive, your body and your life, which is sustained by God himself. And so if God has the capacity to create your body, grow it, mature it, make sure it works properly, keep it alive, and create an ecosystem that we live in that is sustained, then surely he has the ability to provide food and clothing for you. And so it's like, it sets it in that context, right? Like the very things you're worrying about,
that's good.
Your body and your life are the very things that God has given you. And so if he's given you those things, surely he can give you everything else.
Yes.
And so seek first the kingdom, right? And so it's like, damn, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
And it's so hard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, bro. Oof. Okay.
That's heavy.
I think so. So, Jeff, what advice, what wisdom, what insight would you give to volunteers, parents who care about their kids, maybe who are seeing some of these same challenges or living in these spaces? Like, how can they support young people who are like experiencing the challenges in those kind of spaces.
I think the first thing I would say is if you are working in an urban youth space, like you're not alone. There's a lot of us out here, and we know what you're going through. Like we feel it. So just knowing that, I think going in is helpful. The other thing is if you're working with students, if you're a parent, if you're a volunteer, if you're working in the space, no matter what, parachurch organization, church, is active listening is going to be the key. So if you're with kids, I know a lot of people say this, and it's a phrase that gets thrown out there a lot, but being a guide alongside versus a sage on the stage. I know Will Cumby always says that as well. Shout out Will.
Shout out to Will.
But it's so true is if you don't have your active listening skills up to par, like you're not going to get very far with kids. So starting there, you don't have to have the answers. You don't have to have any answers, but just listening is huge. And which then leads to dialogue. So having honest dialogue, I think that's like going back to the shift conversation is if you're a parent or you're a volunteer or you're leading an organization, I think instead of having this like, hey, I'm just going to lecture information to you, having a dialogue and hearing where they're at because they got some thoughts and they need to express it. And so having a safe space for them to talk about things. Bro, you're gonna learn some stuff from these kids.
Big facts, sir.
You know, and so listening, dialogue, and then the last thing that I think I've been learning a lot is just presence, faithful presence, being there. We live in the neighborhood. We live across the street from the school. We live next to Aim Right, and that has been, I think it's made the most difference in our ministry is just being with kids all the time. So physically being with them, listening, having that dialogue, having boundaries, you got to have all that. But I think we're missing a little bit of that presence piece sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I would say is like, and I think right now is a really exciting time to be part of youth ministry and working with urban youth. I think there's a lot of incredible things, especially here in Phoenix, that are happening, where we get to come together and just see the gospel shared with a ton of kids and see them flourish in that. And they're going to be the ones that are driving it. I think that's the other thing too, is they have a lot to offer.
Yeah, it's dope. I think about, we definitely, the way that we structure and order the things that we do, I think has massive implications for how kids respond. Like I think about the reality that, like you said, the sage from the stage. And when we step down from that and we allow them to participate and help shape what it is that we're doing. And so it's, hey, we're doing this thing together, as opposed to, hey, I'm doing this thing and you guys need to come and listen to me.
Yeah.
And once again, it's not that there isn't this exchange of information and transformation doesn't happen. I think God uses it the same, or I would argue better. But I think when you, especially with this generation, when you allow them to participate, own, have a say, share how they're thinking, how they're feeling, and then respond with kindness, with the gospel, with compassion, I think it's incredibly transformative for them. Yeah. And so, yeah, man, I think there is this shift happening right now. And I think the shift is good and right. And I think it's going to be really cool to see the young people in this generation, Gen Z, Gen A, that follow Jesus. Like, what do they become like? What do they do? Where do they go? What do they build? Because I mean, this generation's changing the world for sure. They're breaking it right now.
Yeah, they are.
And so we have some influence in terms of what they rebuild. And I think that's going to depend on how we treat them, how we care for them, how we love them, how we show them who Jesus is.
Yeah. And if I'm being real, like it's hard. Like I'm still, like I say, yeah, you got to listen, dialogue, be present. I'm still learning how to do that well, do that with a team. How do you teach that? So it's tough. And so I think just recognizing that too is like, it's not a plug and play formulaic thing. Like there's nuance and complexity, and it's a journey. Yeah.
I like that because like, I think once we do that work, the next step is to get out the way.
Yeah.
It's like, let them lead, let them do their thing. And I think that will bring so much joy to us, like as we sit back with our knees banging and hurting, and like, yeah, I invested in that, and
Yes.
go do your thing. And that's one of the greatest blessings, bro, of lifting people up, is seeing God work in them, putting them on the stage, letting them teach, giving them the mantle. You go lead the people, man. And I think Gen Z just needs that push, that help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm only in your life for a little bit of time. Let me invest in you, love you. Let me hear everything you have to say. Let me do what I can, because I want to see you take this and do it further, and do it bigger, and do it better, and go deeper and go wider with this. So I think that's like, once we put in that work, that's what you were saying. It's like, here's that mantle.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, but you're not alone though. I still walk
we're
with
still
you.
with you.
Yeah. Facts.
Can I just speak to that a little bit? That empowerment piece.
Yeah.
It's something, I think this may be one of the biggest things that I'm wrestling with, my perception of it, and how I work with my leaders, how I work with staff, and then the kids especially. I really wanted to be intentional with the students, especially, that when I'm empowering them, that it's not me saying, okay, here's the power in the way that I do things, and now you're going to do it that way. So it's like I'm handing it off. But instead, it's rather, I want to like woo out what they already have. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? So there's still instruction, there's still, that the information that's given and training. But I think the piece that I've been missing for a long time is not recognizing that the kids already have it built inside. And so like the Spirit of God is in them, and that is their empowerment. They're already created to do this. They're already created to do this work. And I get to, for this season, the time that God has given us together, I get to help woo that out of them, so they can do this. And it's not this, okay, we're going to take, there's not going to be a bunch of little mini, Pastor Jeffs running around, no, it's going to be unique to them and their personality.
Yeah.
And so rather than, again, that like, I'm not going to be in front of them, I'm going to be beside them.
Yeah.
Showing them that they're already empowered to do this. I think that's part of that process of them leading and all that. But it's really tough. It's difficult to do.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you, bro.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for chopping it up with us and kind of sharing your thoughts, feelings, and your experience. Grateful for you. Grateful for what you're doing in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And excited for it to continue, bro.
Likewise.
Big facts, bro.
All right, everybody. Well,
we'll get some
hope you
Popeyes
enjoyed that. I mean, we can get Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, and Cane's all at the same
saying.
time if you want. I mean, we could.
I ain't forgot about this.
I knew you was thinking about it the whole time, huh?
Oh, facts.
That's why you were speaking with such passion, thinking about that chicken. But anyways, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. So questions, comments, concerns, drop us YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever we're at, TikTok. Shoot us a comment. We'd love to dialogue with you guys.
Like and subscribe, man.
Like and subscribe. Share with youth workers, youth leaders. By the way, if somebody decided they wanted to give support, where would they go?
aimright.org/give.
Sweet. I'll make sure we drop that on the
thank you. Appreciate
on the post. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
love you guys. We will talk to you soon. Peace.